Alright, I finally saw the Super Mario movie, and I loved it. I understand why everybody was so hyped about it. It really is fantastic in so many ways, from the music, the sound effects, the references, the animation is surprisingly good. Really, there's a lot to like. However, at the end of the movie, after the credits, we can see that Nintendo is setting up what looks like a sequel. So, will we see another Super Mario movie? Well, I've come up with a couple of ideas of what they could do. So, let's look into them, and also rank them on a tier list from best to worst. Now first up, Yoshi's Island. At some point in the movie we can see the Yoshis, and it seems to be somewhere around Yoshi's Island. And if you actually waited until the credits were finished in the cinema, you could see, during the end credits, a Yoshi egg with the familiar sound of Yoshi coming out of it, the one that Mario uses. So we could actually see a Yoshi's Island movie, which would be more of a prequel than a sequel, because in Yoshi's Island, Yoshi actually helps baby Mario. So that would make it a prequel and not a sequel. Although something like that wouldn't make too much sense, because we can see that in the movie he actually has a family. So the whole story of Yoshi's Island wouldn't really be a good fit for this version of Mario. However, there's also something else they could do. They could also make a Super Mario World sequel. I mean, that movie has a cool premise, setting, enemies, and so much more. And they could also finally introduce the koopalings, which we haven't seen so far. So I think Super Mario World would be a cool option. And if I had to place it somewhere on the tier list, it would be in B, because while it would be cool, there are better ideas out there. Now another idea that is floating around is a Donkey Kong standalone movie, one that focuses on Donkey Kong and his whole family. Donkey Kong. Because in the movie, we do see the Kong Empire, a lot of Donkey Kong's family, and so much more. So really, the setting, location, ideas, concept art, all that stuff is already done. They could quite easily make a Donkey Kong standalone movie, just like they did with Mario. And of course, for a movie like this, they could use King K. Rool as the villain. Now, while I think the idea is cool, I'm not a gigantic fan of the idea. And that's mostly because I don't think Seth Rogen is that good of a Donkey Kong. I mean, his performance in the Super Mario movie surely wasn't bad, but spoilers, you do hear his laugh twice. And we all know how Seth Rogen sounds when he laughs.
They are weird. Super weird. So funny.
And that really took me out of the movie. I kind of cringed every time it happened, and luckily enough, it only happened twice. So while a Donkey Kong movie could be really cool and a lot of the stuff that is needed for it is already there, like the world, concept arts, all the ideas, the family members, which were seen in the Super Mario movie and stuff, I don't really want it. So on the tier list, this idea will end up in C. Not bad, but not great. Now the next idea I had in mind was Luigi's Mansion, which is mostly due to the introduction scene that we see in the Darklands when Luigi ends up there in the movie, which was also seen in a lot of the trailers. Personally, I absolutely love that idea, mostly because of that one scene in the Super Mario movie. When Luigi roams around in Bowser's Darklands, it really gives me that Luigi's Mansion feeling, and the horror vibes are on, and they are spot on. And I would say it's on a similar scale to the scenes with the big bad wolf from the latest Puss in Boots movie. Really, the lighting, the sound effects, the setting, everything is perfect. So I think if Illumination were to make a Luigi's Mansion movie, they could do a really good job. At the end of the day, Charlie Day is perfect for Luigi because he can really do that erratic and scared voice, which Luigi is known for. Luigi is a bit clumsy, he's always scared, but he always pushes through, especially when his brother is in a bad spot, as we have seen in all Luigi's Mansion games. And while they can't go for a truly scary adult horror movie, they could go for something like Goosebumps, which was an introduction to horror for a lot of children. And I think a concept like that, combined with Charlie Day's voice and the new animation that Illumination does, would make for a great Luigi's Mansion kids horror movie. And so this one will end up in the S tier, because really, it is perfect. Now, another idea that they could do is a Wario and Waluigi movie. Now, this one would be a bit weird because they haven't used them too much in games, so we don't really know what kind of direction they would go. I mean, in the Wario games, it's usually about collecting treasure, so maybe it could be some sort of treasure hunt movie, or it could be a movie where Waluigi and Wario are some sort of anti-heroes. So they aren't necessarily evil, but they're also not necessarily good. A bit like Deadpool. But they could even go for a full-on villain movie, where we actually follow Waluigi and Wario, who try to take down Mario and Luigi. And I bet at the end of the movie, Wario and Waluigi would work together with Mario and Luigi, because, yeah, it's a kid's movie. But still, the idea would be cool. But Illumination can't draw from a lot of material that Nintendo has created. When it comes to Mario, there are loads of games out there. But when it comes to Wario and Waluigi, the library is a bit limited. But still, an interesting idea. And so I will put it in the A tier. Now, another idea that I came up with is a Super Mario Galaxy movie. Now, this would be another great one. Just think about the interesting settings and animation they could do in space, just like we saw in Super Mario Galaxy. That game was also visually impressive. So a movie based on Super Mario Galaxy would also look stunning. Aside from that, the story of this movie could have incredibly high stakes, with the entire universe being in danger, which is the same thing that we saw in the Super Mario Galaxy games. That game really was on a grand scale with gigantic set pieces, so maybe they could do that in a movie as well. And of course, Bowser would return as the villain. Personally, I like the idea, and I think the visuals could be especially good. So when it comes to the tier list, this one also ends up in the S tier. Now, another idea they could do is a Mario Kart movie. Sure, you have a small little section where they show off Mario Kart in the Super Mario movie, but they could do so much more with it. They could create a movie around a gigantic racing tournament, and the winner gets a superstar. And so Mario has to win, because otherwise Bowser gets it, and then the world is doomed. And so it wouldn't really be an action-adventure movie, but more a racing movie, similar to something like Cars. And of course, it would still be filled with a lot of creativity and wackiness, because we all know how Mario Kart is. You have loads of crazy items and tracks after all. So again, it could be very visually interesting, filled with Easter eggs and references, and it could have a lot of action. Now, this is another idea that I quite like, but I'm not sure if it could really work. So when it comes to the tier list, I'm gonna put this one in B. However, this isn't even the weirdest idea that I've come up with. Another thing they could do is a Mario Olympics movie, which would allow them to really explore the sports section of Nintendo's gaming catalog. Because as we all know, Nintendo has a lot of sports games, like a crazy amount. And in a lot of ways, the story would be similar to the Mario Kart movie, where Mario has to win or otherwise Bowser wins and then he gets something like a superstar, or a date with Peach or something. However, the coolest thing about this idea is that it would allow for a Sonic crossover. And as we all know, Sega has also been making Sonic movies and they've been doing pretty good, so why not bring over that idea to the Super Mario movies? But obviously it wouldn't be live action, it would be animated, obviously. Again, a cool idea, but I'm not sure how they would turn this into a movie. Like, how do you translate this well, create an interesting story, visual settings, etc. So while I like the idea, especially as a crossover with Sonic, it isn't perfect. So when it comes to the tier list, I would put it in A. Now, so far, I've mostly focused on a sequel that would feature either Mario or Luigi, the two main protagonists of the Super Mario movie. And I mean, doing so makes a lot of sense, right? However, there's also another thing they could do. They could also make a Super Princess Peach movie. This was an obscure Nintendo DS game that was very odd, and I don't think they will draw any inspiration from it because it was also incredibly inappropriate. But still, they could use the title Super Princess Peach for a Princess Peach focused movie. We can see in the Super Mario movie that she is clearly capable and is someone who takes action. So just imagine Princess Peach gets kidnapped by Bowser, and instead of Mario saving her, she actually escapes herself. So it becomes some sort of escape movie, a bit of a prison break vibe, which would allow for explore a completely new angle that we haven't seen whatsoever in the Super Mario movie. And as we have seen, she is one to hatch plans and double-cross. Personally, I think this idea would actually be a lot of fun and could very well be possible, but it could also fall into a pit hole of cliches, which obviously isn't a good thing. So while I like the idea, I'm gonna put this one in the B tier on the tier list. Now I have one last idea left, and this one is even to an extent referenced in a movie. A Super Mario sequel based on Super Mario Land 1, where Mario goes to Sarasa Land to help another princess, Daisy. And here Luigi could have his own love dynamic and could even be more of a main character instead of Mario like we saw in the Super Mario movie. So sure, Mario would still have a big role in a Super Mario Land movie, just like he has in the game, but this time, Luigi is getting all the love from the princess. This way, the dynamic from the first movie would be kind of flipped around in the sequel. It could even be that Mario gets grabbed by the villain instead of Luigi. I think it would be interesting to see that dynamic flip, because in the first movie, Luigi was very scared and Mario had to save him. But now that Mario is caught by the villain, Luigi has to man up and save his brother. Personally, I think that would be very cool. And so when it comes to the tier list, I will put this one in the A tier, because really the potential is there. But at the end of the day, there's one big important question left. Could we even see a sequel? Well, yes, the Super Mario movie has brought in around $1 billion so far, which is absolutely insane. Miyamoto's already planning the next Nintendo movie even. That's how serious this is. Now sure, it might not be a Super Mario movie sequel, but it will be something based on Nintendo. And as we all know, Nintendo has enough stuff to make movies about. Just imagine a Metroid movie, a Zelda movie, or even a Pokemon movie. All of those could be amazing, especially if Illumination does the animation and does an incredible job just like they did with the Super Mario movie. Again, I can't say enough how impressed I am with Illumination when it comes to the animation. Really, Illumination isn't that great normally, because, I mean, Despicable Me was okay, but the animation certainly wasn't anything to write home about. But in the Super Mario movie, it is stupid good. It's crazy. I didn't expect that at all. And Miyamoto isn't the only one talking about it. Chris Pratt even expects more movies in the Nintendo universe. And when it specifically comes to a Super Mario movie sequel, it seems like a Luigi's Mansion or Yoshi-related sequel would be the most likely. Mostly because the interest for it is high, both with the actors, studio, and we get that post-credit scene that kind of hints towards Yoshi. So personally, I do expect a sequel, and I'm pretty excited for it. And let me know in the comments what you thought about the movie and what you would want to see in a new Nintendo film, either a Super Mario sequel or something brand new. And subscribe, click the bell button, like, do all that good stuff. Yeah.